Hi, I'm Jim. I'm not a pastor, but I play one on the internet. I wanted to talk to you about how worship is going to be affected in this new time after the coronavirus. And my colleagues and I, we spent a lot of time talking about how worship is going to be different and how we're going to have to make changes. And a lot of that is focused on communion, and so I did want to talk a little bit about that. First, I want to say that in my prayers, as all of you have been praying for all the people who are affected by this virus, all the people who've died, all the people who have lost loved ones, and really all of us have been affected by this virus emotionally and spiritually to some extent or another. So our prayers go out to everyone who's been affected by this virus. So we've spent a lot of time talking about how we're going to do communion in this time. And I'd like to say that I think there's a couple of ways in which we could do it, and I want to demonstrate a way in which I've been thinking about it. I'm still thinking about it, and you can help me to kind of think about it. I thought if I demonstrate it, maybe it might help a little bit to get the conversation going. So traditionally what we do is the minister takes individual wafers, and then someone puts out their hand. Thank you, Liam, for your hand. So this is a problem because of contact. If I were to do this a dozen times, 24 times, I'm having contact over and over again with people. And I can try, not to get too close. I could try like dropping it in someone's hand or something like that. But really you're coming very close to someone. And you're at least violating the 6-foot rule. Even if you have a mask, you're violating the 6-foot rule by having somebody come close enough for you to place it in their hand. What a lot of people have suggested is that we had those individual plastic cups that you kind of pull the seal back to use. So the ELCA guidelines, I think, have said that that might be prohibitive because of cost. And it also might be a little difficult for some people to open up those seals, especially if they've never done it before, or if they have an issue with arthritis or something. You have to peel it off. You have to take that one host and you have to peel it off again. It's a little bit awkward, I think. Also, I don't like the idea of single-use plastics. So if we can avoid that at any time, any kind of petroleum products, plastic products, I think that's a good thing. So what I'm suggesting is that we use individual paper cups, that the individual paper cups, we can recycle these. At the very least, it's not as bad as plastic, in my opinion. And it is a way that people can avoid touching each other and touching the same surface. If I were to take each individual host and place it down for people that they can then pick it up, if I were to place it, on a surface, that would be a surface that each person would be touching. But if I place it in a cup like this, each person is going to come forward. I'm going to place it there and move away, and each person can come forward and just take the cup that they're using. So that's a way that I'm thinking about doing it. I'd like your feedback on what you think about that. I would also like to say that as we're thinking about worship, that the first time we come back for this worship after we're finished with this time of pause, we probably shouldn't do communion on the first time back. There's a lot of stuff that we have to work out that's even more complicated. So we might come back and do just a service of the word and see how that goes and see all the things that we need to figure out before we get to communion. I know communion is very important to people. I've had communion every week of my life since I was in 2nd grade, I think. I miss having communion. I miss distributing communion. And I know a lot of us are feeling that way. To me, though, I think we need to figure out how we're going to do a lot of stuff with worship, and communion is going to be one of the most difficult ones. So when we come back, if we could just do a service of the word, see how we do that, because there's a lot of logistical things we have to figure out, and then slowly move week by week as we see how that works out and how we adjust, to then figure out how we're going to do communion. That's going to be one of the more difficult things to figure out, I think. We're going to have to figure out how to meet people at the sidewalk, to screen them, ask them if they have any symptoms, ask them if they've been into contact with anybody. We're going to have to screen people before they come into the building with those questions, make sure that they have their mask and that it's on and that they're agreeing to keep it on while they're during the service. That's something we've never done before. Someone's going to have to make sure that people maintain that 6-foot distance as they enter and as they leave. We've never had to do that before. Someone's going to have to be ready to tell somebody that they can't come in if they failed the screening questions. We've never had to do that before. It's going to be really hard for us to figure out how to do that. We've never had to tell people to, hey, stay away from each other. Hey, don't get too close to that person. Hey, no touching, no hugging. That's going to be a whole new thing for us to figure out, and it would be good for us to do that a couple of weeks before we figure out how we're going to get on to other things that we don't have to do the first week we come back. We're going to have to figure out how to have people sitting far apart in the space. We've never had to do that before. We're going to have to figure out, do we give people, bulletins? We can't really be handing out bulletins. Maybe we could place bulletins on the seats so that they're there for people. We're going to figure out how, if at all, we're going to do the offering. There's so many logistical things that we're going to have to figure out. We have to have a record of everyone who attends every service, because if someone turns out that later that week to have had the virus, we're going to have to contact everyone and say, you were at this service on Sunday, and we're contacting you because someone was there who tested positive after that. I would like us to figure out how to do all those things a couple of weeks at a time. For me, I think I should be spending the month of June explaining that to my congregation. You're going to have to wear a mask. Maybe we're going to have a freestanding sanitizing station as you walk in. You're going to have to be cleaning your hands. You're going to have to keeping that distance. We're going to have to explain to people that you cannot sing when we're together, because that's a big problem for people to be singing and projecting and then breathing deeply. We're going to have to explain to people that they cannot pray corporately. We cannot speak corporately. We can't do the psalm with everyone saying the psalm together. We can't pray the Lord's Prayer with everyone praying it. There may be a couple of weeks where I'm saying, I'm going to pray the Lord's Prayer, you have to be silent. And maybe I'll have to stop a couple of times and say, please, I need everyone to be silent while we're doing this. I'm going to spend the month of June trying to explain all of that to people. And then, seeing when we come back, how it works, how we do that. And then doing that for at least a couple of weeks to make sure that we have all of those things as understood and as worked out before we get on to things like communion, to me, I think. So I'm not sure if this is the way I would do communion, but it's something I've been thinking about for a while. I wanted to demonstrate it to people, to demonstrate I'm going to put a wafer in, I'm going to place the wafer down, I'm going to be away from the wafer as the person comes up to take their individual wafer and then leave, and then I'll be placing the next cup after that. That's a way that I've been thinking about doing it. And I invite your comments about what you think. If that makes sense to you, you wouldn't do it this way, you'd modify it somehow, let me know what you think. And I want to thank Liam for being my cameraman. I hope everyone stays safe and that you figure out a way to stay connected, that you figure out a way to continue to be the church. Thank you.